Live. Mic check, mic check. I think I have audio. Can someone else from Zoom speak up?
I hear you.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, we have
Yes,
audio
sir.
all around. Can chat confirm that they can hear all of us? Live.
Checking.
Nobody's talking.
Nobody's.
Yep, I can hear sound on the YouTube.
Okay, we got yay in the chat. So let's consider us live. I'll hit record and we're away. Scott, you'll take over from here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, long toss. We're rolling.
Okay. Well, hello and welcome to episode 301, season 3, episode 1 of Long Toss. Here we are, April 28th, a month late. We had a bunch of shit go on. Everyone who is still here right now, 14 minutes after we teased that we would start this, thank you for bearing with us. Here's what happened. Adam always runs the show here. He's the man. He's been the long toss guy this whole time, but his schedule hasn't looked good for 2024. So I said, no problem. I will host this thing. I will learn how to do the live. And so he started walking me through this at 3:15. Here we are an hour later. Adam has taken the reins again. He's running it live on his computer. I swear I will figure it out again. Hit that like button. Thank you so much. I am very excited to have Long Toss back up and rolling here. Truly one of my favorite shows to do. I want to start with saying we are going to try and be very consistent this year. I know that was one thing we got a lot of pushback from last year, is that sometimes we would miss a Sunday here or there, but the goal is to not miss any Sundays this week or this year.
This
all right.
week.
So I'm Scott Belford. Hello, everybody. We are going to do a little bit different format this year. From the walk-off Mariners, running Long Toss with me all year round is going to be Juan Forno. Juan, welcome aboard, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me.
See you sporting that sweet old Mariners hat there, bud.
I gotta stay true, you know. I can't mix it up just because we're doing this on Sundays.
How have things been on walk-off Mariners, bud?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. We got to talk to Blue Jays friend Taylor Saucedo and starting to kind of get some momentum and get on track. So it's going well, and the last 2 weeks have been fun as a Mariners fan. So hopefully that continues on as well.
Adam Mack.
Hi there.
The best co-host in the biz.
I'm the reason we were so inconsistent last year.
But also, you are a tech whiz in comparison to myself, and I appreciate you to death. Thank you for joining us, my man. How was your Sunday so far? Big Jays win, and we're going to get into it.
Finally, we got there. It's been a rough week. That Royal Series was tough. Shohei really putting the boots to us. But we got out on a high note, so there's reason to hope.
And then we have our 3 favorite regulars from since the time Long Toss started. We'll start with you, Baseball Jen, who, like you teased on Twitter, it's been so long I screwed up your Twitter handle. How was your winter? How are you feeling? Welcome back.
I'm happy to be here and to see all of you again. I've missed this. Like, my Sundays have not felt the same.
It hasn't felt the same. And I'm glad we're back in business. Another regular of the show and good friend here on the walk-off. Hey, Kami, Joel, welcome back, buddy. Thanks for taking some time to join us.
Of course, I totally am going to mirror what Jen said. It's like there's kind of 2 times a year, right? There's off season, then there's baseball season. And the thing that is so synonymous with baseball season is having that once a week sit down where you're able to throw all your thoughts out on the table and talk baseball with a nice group of great baseball minds. So yeah, I sorely missed this, and I'm glad it's back up and going.
And finally, least but not last by any means, my good buddy, gentleman who helped run Baseball Town for the first time in September last year, Craig Ballard, welcome back, buddy. I know that you took a little break from content making and from Twitter, but you seem hooked back in, despite this team maybe not being the most exciting thing to watch. You are back on board, buddy.
No, yeah, not making content, but back on Twitter, trying to interact with the Blue Jay fans. Absolutely, yes. I mean, Blue Jay baseball is always going to be a big deal for me. You had Kami mentioning all the great baseball minds we have. Well, I'm here as well, Kami, so you can mention me also. But yes, no, always great to be back on the Walk Off podcast. I'm just such a fan of the Walk Off podcast community. I've said that. I was trying to figure out, Scott. Geez, I think this goes back. Wasn't I think I was pre-COVID even. Like, I think I'm going on to like 4 or 5 years as being blessed as being a guest on the Walk Off. So I'm going to echo what everybody said. It's a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon talking baseball, especially walking in the door fresh off of a victory. Okay.
And that is basically how we're going to start. Listen, I know that this is going to get negative at times, so we will start on the bright side, which is the Jays pitched incredibly today. Kevin Gausman looked like the true ace that we expected him to be. I know he had a rough start to the season, some shutdowns in spring training, a little bit of trouble getting built up, being thrown right into the fire and not really being allowed to kind of stretch out like I'm sure he would have rather have done. But you know what? Honestly, front to back, Jimmy Garcia pitched into some trouble, got out of it. Tim Meza kind of got lucky there with a long fly ball that they caught at the wall. And then Jordan Romano, amazing catch by George Springer in the outfield to bail him out there. And then the save. So good news there. They salvaged one from this series. But let's be honest. The question marks around the offense. This win did nothing to quench those. And it has been, let me get this right, 3 weeks since this team has scored more than 6 runs. 3 weeks. Joel, I'm gonna throw to you here and just get your general sense of where this offense is at, what they can possibly do to increase run production with the cast of characters they currently have. I mean, despite it feeling like the sky is falling, it is April 28th, so I don't think we can expect big trades to bolster this lineup quite yet. What are your general feelings on this offense, and is the ceiling higher than this, or are we just better cross our fingers and this team wins a bunch of 3-1 ball games?
Team really seems set to win the tight game, and if it's going to be the, slugfest, we're not really so suited, at least not right now, to compete in those high-scoring games where it better be tight, or we're probably not there, at least right now. It's tough. It's tough to sit there and go, is it Springer going down to fourth? Is it all the things that we've talked about? Like, to me, it's interesting because, like, I know one of the topics is Addison Barger coming up, but it's just like you sit there and you hear that Davis Snyder's not getting the reps that he needs, and it's like it's kind of this interesting situation of what do you put in, what do you rely on. It's such a shift to a team that is defensive. You've got and a team that went from being all offense, and what does offense do, right? Like, the concept of offense is something where if you go and put up that crooked number, you can potentially win a game. A 0 doesn't win you a game in any singular inning. A 0 is you put up 6 zeros and then you put up an 8. There's still an 8 at the end, right? So that crooked run offense that you're able to rely on out of nowhere goes, and all of a sudden everybody goes up, you bat around in an inning. That's a style of play that when you go to look at Atlanta, even when they're not running full out, Acuna's not running full out, Olson's not running full out, Austin Riley's not running full out, Ozzie Albies was hurt. That's a team that's suffering a lot, really offensively. They're the best team in baseball because they're built offensively. There's so much. Ozuna goes off, puts up a 1200 OPS. You rely on that singular amazing bat. We're not able to rely on a singular amazing bat really at all anymore. That just kind of has faded into obscurity, especially when you look at your top 3 guys in the lineup and their OPSs are starting with a 6. right? Like Springer, Bo, Vlad, your top three guys, their OPS is starting with a 6. And you're just like, are we a top heavy lineup? What are we? What kind of lineup are we? We can't even say move this guy down, because what does that even mean? There's really no top. You're rotating from 9 back up to 9, so yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. Is there a sudden change that we can make? I don't know. New hitting coach, it's probably been the thing that we should have done for a while now, but yeah.
Jen, where are you at on I guess, the general state of the Toronto Blue Jays right now, April 28th, 2024? Because it is very easy to be negative, although you do look at this team, and I mean, it is April. They're only one game under 500, and no one's really running away with it quite yet. I mean, obviously the Yankees look good. Obviously the Orioles look good. But even, I mean, taking a look over at the Seattle Mariners and that AL West, I mean, that AL West was looking like it was going to be a meat grinder once again, and it still may be, but no one's really taken flight yet. Where are you at on the Jays, their chances, and just in general, if this offense can find itself?
I mean, it's really hard to make any proclamations at the end of April of a 162 game season. However, what we are seeing from this offense extends back into last season. We all know this, right? And it's the same issues that we are seeing. And I don't know if there is an end in sight. I'm taking a look at, for instance, where their run differential is at, minus 26 at the moment. They were plus 71 last year, which seems shocking to me, even just seeing that number, right? But, that plus 71 run differential last season in and of itself was a regression. And now to start this season, I don't know how it gets better from here. And, it's hard to be negative on the day of a win. Good for them for winning that game, but they didn't win because of their offense, right? Kirk ran into one. Good for him. That is not something we've seen from him yet this season. And who knows when we'll see it again, right? They won on the strength of their starting pitching today. That's the only reason they won that game. And so, when you're not putting up, I almost made a joke, when, Bo had that horrendous at bat, and then immediately after, Vlad was thrown out at first base. And I was going to tweet that, when the Jays talked about run prevention, no one realized they were talking about preventing their own runs. So I don't know where they're at. And like Joel said, I don't think that this is a simple fix. How do you get these guys going? You can't drop the top 3 in the lineup because there really is nobody to take their place, right? You're not, yes, okay, Davis Schneider has been looking incredible. However, are you really replacing your so-called stars with a rookie, right? Like somebody who's still rookie eligible? Like what kind of a look is that? I don't know. I don't know where it goes from here. My biggest concern is Vlad. Even though Bo's numbers are absolutely atrocious at this point, my biggest concern is Vlad, simply because, everybody around him has been talking about his need to make adjustments, and he doesn't seem to be able to do so. I think Springer right now is, to be honest, the victim of age-related regression and injury history catching up to him. I don't think his bat speed is there. And I don't know what you do with that. He's your $150 million man. What do you do with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I am going to just start what I'm about to say by saying I am just some schmuck. I played baseball for years, but I know shit. But I do know this, that if you just take the swing from 2021 Vlad and you compare it to the swing that he is performing with now, there's a toe tap involved now. His hands are a little lower. It just doesn't look the same. And what I can't wrap my head around is if you have such a dominant season like he did in 2021, why are you not doing everything in your power to replicate it to the exact like moment type of thing, right? Like, why are you not putting all your time into trying to replicate exactly what you did? And they've got a million coaches that are much smarter than I am. So I'm sure there's a good reason for it. But like when a schmuck like me can look at the swing and be like, this is different. Why has it changed? He had so much success with it as it is. It does make me wonder, is it Vlad? And I know we're all big Vlad fans here, but I will throw to you, Craig, and just ask you, is Vlad refusing to change? Like, does Vlad think he knows best? Because you can tell the kid's frustrated.
I don't know if that's the case. Boy, oh boy, I wish I had a better answer for you on Vlad. I was thinking about this earlier today. I mean, shout out if you know the Sports Cafe in Mississauga. It used to be this amazing. Imagine the sports bar where every seat was a booth, and you had your own TV at the booth to watch it. Like, brilliant, right? Just amazing. And that's where I remember that night I was there, and I saw, I'm a big Laker fan. I saw when the Lakers drafted Kobe Bryant. And my point is, even as for somebody like Kobe, I was so excited. Every athlete on any team ever for me, I've been excited about guys, Delgado. There's been a lot of guys I've been excited about, but I needed to see it when the lights were on. I needed to see it on the big league level. You've been dominant against your own age. Now you're going up against grown adults. I need to see it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the only athlete in my entire life, and I say that to say that I'd never have hyperbole with these athletes. He's the only one in my life. As he was coming up through the system, I thought I saw enough there. First ballot Hall of Famer. I've never been like that with anyone ever in my entire life. His approach at the plate as he came up through the minors compared to now is night and day, and I do not get it. When he was coming up, he forced pitchers into that strike zone. He was not willing to play their little reindeer games at all, and his swing in that strike zone is violent and awesome. Why did that change? I do not know. Drives me nuts. There was an at-bat 3 days ago that for me was a microcosm of all of this. Remember the opener in Tampa, Vlad's third at bat, he hit a ball that still hasn't landed yet. So for the first time last season, he was never ready to hit pitchers' mistakes. Drove me nuts. Well, that was a pitcher mistake. He was ready to hit it. He hit it 450 feet. It was unbelievable. 3 days ago, there was an at bat. It was about, I want to say about 93, 94, right down the middle. This is 3 days ago. The ball still shouldn't have landed by now. Vlad had an inside-out swing as if he's trying to poke a single to right field. He hit an 18 hopper to the second baseman. I'm sitting there watching it by myself with my arms extended, shouting out loud. There it is right there. That's the problem. It's my point here, Scott. It's not just the swing and the mechanics. It's all of it. It's the approach. It's, for me, it's all of it, and I'm stunned. In Major League ballpark, Vlad came up in 2019, folks. In Major League ballparks, he has a 267 batting average. At what point, this might be my question, panel, at what point have we seen enough of a sample size where what we're seeing with Vlad is who Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, and the superstar idea that we all had in our head does not exist? And I wish I had a better answer for Vlad, because I want to love Vlad. I can't right now.
Yeah. I think I said it last season that I thought perhaps everybody had missed the mark on him a little bit. That I think what we're seeing is who he is. And, you know, I'm not sitting here trying to write off a 25-year-old, but we have definitely seen enough of a sample size to say that for whatever reason, he's either unable or unwilling to change what he's doing, even though it's not working for him. And there doesn't seem to be a reason why. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about it either, but it's not good.
This time last year, we all wondered where the extension was for Vlad. You haven't heard extension talk for Vlad in a long time at this point.
I hate to give credit to this front office. I honestly do, but maybe they were right on not extending him. I don't know. And maybe it's part of the problem. I know Chucharu says he does legit seem lost physically and mentally at the plate. And that kind of touches on what you were saying, Craig, of that it's not one thing that's plaguing this young guy. Okay. And I do bring up his age because I know 25 is still at a point where I guess what I'm saying, without getting into the numbers of his age and all that, is that I still can see a world where a 29-year-old Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hits 40 home runs and 120 RBIs. I'm not saying that that's where he's going to be every year, but I think he has one of those years left in him. And I do understand the pushback, Craig, about Major League Parks. Okay, because we are well aware he played a lot of time in Dunedin in 2021 while the pandemic was going on. But he hit 48 dingers. Like, even if we wish to get wild and say that 18 of those weren't legit, and I don't feel that's the case. It's probably more like 8 if we're actually going to start doing the math on the distance and stuff like that. 40 is still incredible. And if you can do it once, it only stems to reason you can do it again. I know that's not how sports always works, and there are obviously examples of anomalies like this where there's one major massive MVP like season and then you never really see that that high level performance again. It's just so odd to me that this just such a young dude has just lost it like this. And Juan, I am going to throw to you here, and just, I know that there are a lot of comparisons between the Mariners and the Jays, with the Mariners also struggle with scoring runs from time to time.
I was literally gonna say, welcome to feeling what it's like to be a Mariners fan, y'all. We like to call it the Felix Hernandez effect, where you have to win 1-0 to win ball games. I can't speak too much on Vladdy. I haven't watched a ton of Blue Jays baseball this year, but what it sounds like is a bad approach. I can't comment on his mechanics, but like you said, Scott, this is a dude that hit 48 home runs as a 21 or 22-year-old kid. So I can't imagine the mechanics or the swing is the major issue. But listening to Craig there and your situation of him hitting an 18 dribbler on a 3-1 count or whatever it was, I think, getting beat by a fastball in that situation, I think he's just guessing the wrong pitch and should have taken it instead of swinging. So it is an approach issue, right? If he's getting jammed and locked up on a 3-1 count on a fastball, like he's guessing something else, and he should have just taken that pitch when it wasn't his pitch. And that comes to the mental aspect of the game. For me, I think, he's struggling. He's not performing the way that I think he expects of himself, but also the entire country of Canada expects him to play. And that's weighing on this kid. Like you guys said, 25-year-old, and there's holes in the philosophy of hitting and the approach for me. So I think that's a major issue, and maybe he just needs a phantom IL stint to get his head right. Go and sit on a beach for 2-3 days and get it corrected, so you can come back and help your team offensively.
We'll go to the chat here before I throw to you, Adam. Mike says, who on this team is hitting their ceiling? And that's actually a really good question, because watching this Dodgers team sure made me feel like this Jays team is miles away from being a true World Series contender. So Mike says, who on this team is hitting their ceiling? If one player, Vlad, or anyone else is performing, it's on the player. Yeah. When the whole team is underperforming, it's on the front office. So I wanted to throw to you with this thought, Adam, because I was thinking this the other day. The Blue Jays went out and spent big for the first time in the organization's history in 2021. They went out and they got George Springer $150 million. And $150 million is nothing to balk at. But $150 million, I think the truth of the matter is, just doesn't get you that sure thing guy anymore. And I'm wondering if maybe it would have just been worth the $300 million to have a Mookie Betts type of guy. I mean, even Freddie Freeman. I mean, I've watched what Freddie has done over the last few years, and I'm like, damn it. I wish that Carlos Barger was right and we did wind up getting him, right? So Adam, for 160, exactly, Joel. So Adam, I guess my question is to you, and it is pertaining to George Springer. Where are you at on George? I know that Jen kind of touched on it, that maybe his age is, he's just at this point. And listen, he's been much better in the outfield than we maybe gave him credit for. He's been really good in right field. Thoughts on George Springer, Adam? Do you think that we've seen his peak already, which still wasn't enough?
Well, I don't think as Blue Jays fans we ever saw his peak. I think he peaked when he was with Astro, and he's
Great call.
been
Yeah.
disappointing since he's been here. That's like the nicest thing I can say about him. That's where
His
I'm at.
batting average has decreased every single season as a Blue Jay. His batting average has decreased every single season as a Blue Jay. His on base has decreased. That's a problem from your leadoff hitter. The defense got so bad that they've had to twice sign Kevin Kiermaier because they can't have George Springer playing center field anymore.
And I mean, the move from center field, workload management was supposed to help him offensively. I haven't seen that either. So
his exit velo is down. His launch angle is down.
Now, can he become a offensive first baseman after we trade Vladdy this winter? Maybe.
I keep thinking of this scene in Moneyball when Brad Pitt / Billy Beane goes to
David Justice
in the batting cages and says, I'm not paying you to be the player you were. I'm paying you to be the player you are now. Be a leader, da, 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 da. And I keep thinking of that scene, the problem being that they are paying him to be the player he was. And that's, we're never going to get that from him.
And the Yankees aren't paying half Springer's contract.
Exactly.
Which is sure too bad. Joel, I know that if there's anyone that still has hope in Vladimir Guerrero Jr., it is you, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have it in you to give the chat, everyone watching, Craig, Jen, myself, Adam, Juan, all a little hope that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can still at least be a 30 to 35 home run guy who hits 100 RBIs?
I still think Vlad has it in him to be the best hitter in baseball. How about that? Is that as high of a expectation
I
have on a player? He's 25. The reason I feel all these things is because talk about Springer, right? Moving Springer moves Lourdes and Teo out. That's lineup security. That's him and pressure. Pressure for Vladdy, right? 2000 runner-up MVP. How much pressure is on that Vladdy to really perform every day? None. Really none. Absolutely, like not really that much, to be completely honest. You've got the RBI leader behind you. You've got Simeon breaking the record for home runs at second base. You have Bo putting up a 300 total base season. The Lourdes is batting 280. Like where's the pressure? Where's the pressure on Vladdy, really? As the guys in the lineup go out, as the security and that, that protection behind him dissipates, it's all on him. More pressure. I think it's a million things that are against him. He was a first ball aggressive guy attacking first pitch. He succeeded by batting 380 on first pitches, being aggressive early in the count when they're throwing strikes instead of behind in the count when they're throwing balls that you have to protect yourself on. Okay. When like Craig says, he's looking at fastballs on a 3-1 count and you're not looking dead red in a fastball count. I know the game is backwards in this day and age, but if you don't look for fastball is always going to beat you. That's why you have to always look fastball in a count for breaking ball. You can't be off fastball. It's the pitch that's thrown 56% of the time in the sport. You can't be off that pitch. Okay, so that's absolutely ridiculous.
I gotta completely disagree with you there. When you get to be a professional hitter, they know how to throw sliders for a strike, and if they think you can't hit a slider, you're seeing 7 sliders, dude.
But
if you're pro hitters, there's no way that's an accurate take.
Oh, okay, but if you're not, he was a guy who attacked fastballs. He was a guy who was not sitting there looking confused at fastballs. Okay, and I'm saying that the aggressiveness is to be put early in the count when he's sitting there and he's taking those pitches that he should not be taking. That we sit there and we watch Vlad early take pitches that there's absolutely no reason he shouldn't be swinging. I feel his aggressiveness comes late when he's
middle.
Exactly.
Yes, that's his pitch that he just looks and watches. That's Vladimir Guerrero's watch pitch right now. Is weirdly enough not being on the most obvious pitch to be on in baseball. It's weirdly inverted for him. So I'm just saying his aggressiveness needs to come early in a count as opposed to late for some reason where he's trying to catch up, but when he's behind, because he's getting behind and he's not getting his swings in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
No,
Getting
pitchers are
behind
just
on balls in
adapting
the
to his
zone.
approach.
What's that?
Pitchers are just adapting to what he's doing, right? Just like he's studying film on pitchers, those pitchers are studying film on him, and they found a way to
So
get him up.
the approach to going to fastball slider away on him came after his MVP season. That was if you want to do the 1,500 at bat approach where you're a rookie, then do you account for the league? Then the league accounts for you. You can say that he has not accounted for the first league shift on his success. Okay?
He's also now at 2,600 at bats.
Yeah. So I'm saying, since his successful season, he has not accounted for the league change in their approach to him. That's why we've seen him stagnate around 770 since that big MVP season. His the concept of exit velo is ridiculous to me. Also, I'm going to say that because he goes there and he looks at his Baseball Savant page and sees all red. He says all red. Okay. But all red to a second baseman on an 18 hopper, or not being aggressive on the pitches that you need to be able to launch, right? The balls that he is swinging at are sliders low and away on 2 strikes, balls at the bottom of the zone that he cannot get to the top half of the barrel. And then when he sits on that fastball, that is the launch angle pitch. He's not being aggressive on that. So when he sits there and he looks at launch angle and people go, oh, but you've got number 99th percentile launch angle. That's not right. When you see Justin Turner come up and properly attack pitches with controlled bat speed, right? And hit the ball where it needs to go. When he needs to pull something, he pulls it. When he needs to go opposite field,
give me 90-mile-an-hour exit velo home runs. I'll take 90-mile-an-hour exit velo home runs all day long.
What Craig is saying, when you see Vladdy hit a 460-foot home run, that means he is swinging with every damn thing that he has. Okay. And when he hits it and he hits it perfect, oh my God, it goes 460. But there's no difference between a 470-foot home run and a 410-foot home run. If you can consistently put it 20 feet over the fence and take off about 3-4% to increase your barrel percentage and your launch percentage.
So I wish to throw to Juan here really quickly as the non-Blue Jays fan in this chat, okay? Because I am very curious on your thoughts on coaching. How much, because listen, the Blue Jays, Guillermo Martinez has been shit on for about a year and a half and has been given a lot of blame for the way this offense has operated. Don Mattingly, same thing. They brought Matt Haig, who had the Buffalo Boys in AAA last year just singing. He's up at the big league club now, and we still haven't really noticed a difference. And, of course, there's the old adage, too many cooks in the kitchen. Is that a thing in baseball? How much emphasis do you put on hitting coaches, and how much of it is on the player?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an equal split. We can only speculate, right? We don't know what the conversations are during batting practice or in that clubhouse, but it's a possibility that he's just being overcoached at this point. He's getting too many voices in his ear, and they just need to shut up and let him hit. There's a reason that this kid was, expected to be a generational talent and a pure hitter, and it's not showing up for whatever reason, whether that's his attitude, his approach, his mechanics, or the coaching around him. It could be a mix of all those things. Good coaching makes a difference. And even at that level, you still need somebody watching what you're doing to make sure that you're doing the right things at the plate. The more eyes that are on you is potential to catch different little things and see different little things. But it's also potential that just too many people in his ear right now. And then he's thinking too much, Yeah. Go back to the Yogi Bear phrases, it's 70% mental or 90% mental or whatever it is. And it seems like it's more of a mental issue than a physical issue with Vladdy right now.
Adam, I'm going to get you to kind of expand on this, and Michael Borland kind of hitting the nail on the head as to what you were saying there, Adam, or Juan, as there might be too many voices in his ear, right? Because Michael says, whatever happened to see ball, hit ball? Clearly this team don't slug, put the bat on the ball. Do you, Adam, think that maybe things have just gotten too in their head? Like, do you think this whole team has got a mental block right now and is making things too complicated?
I don't know. They're either overthinking or they're underthinking, but I'll never know. I'm fucking not thrilled with the results. That's all I know. It's expert analysis for me, but it's maddening. It's frustrating. I don't know who to point fingers at. Like,
I know one of the topics today is talking about how the Mariners are surging, and I know one of the things they recently did was take the tablets out of the dugout and
Interesting.
to try to just focus on the game in front of them.
instead of playing Candy Crush in the dugout, I like it.
Instead of sitting there and trying to look at something, try to analyze individually every single pitch being thrown to every single batter and try to see in game what you're trying to analyze, maybe on a tablet, and you're trying to see a previous bat or something. No, see how he's pitching here, see how he's approaching hitters now in the moment. Don't be so lost in the past. See how the game is progressing.
Yeah, I think you're right. An
Yeah.
overthinking thing, right? Because the Mariners did do that, and they started scoring runs a lot more frequently and a lot better, to be honest with you. And I know there's like, these guys are being paid to be professionals, but there's a lot of mental and staying in the game and staying attached to it. And the second you go and look at this screen, all of a sudden you don't know what's going on in the game. You're not locked in and you're not focused. So the Mariners saw an improvement once they got away from the tablet so aggressively. So, Joel might be right. There may be something to it for sure.
Do you remember?
And I think as well, that's a big part of why Edwin Encarnacion is there. I think to your guys' point, we heard Buck on the telecast yesterday say, listen, Danny Jansen has completely tuned out the hitting coaches. He said there was too many of them. He's getting too much word. And then he said, you know what, guys, all due respect, I'm going to my strength. I'm going to start pulling the ball more. I think Edwin is there to simply sit beside Vlad. No more hitting coaches. All the stuff that they've been working on has not been working. And when Vlad comes back to the dugout, there's Edwin in his Edwin way saying, how come you're sitting here beside me right now? Shouldn't you be trotting around the bases? I mean, that second pitch, my God, what I would have done with that second pitch. You weren't ready to hit that second pitch? You weren't thinking fastball? I think Edwin's there for Vlad. And it's a case of, it's odd because it's another cook, but I think that's part of it. Because there were so many cooks in that kitchen. We were not seeing any results. I think Edwin's pretty much there almost to be a one-on-one for Vlad, to be honest with you.
Does it sound
Exactly
like
what he's there for.
Do you think the organization is babying this guy then to bring in a legacy player like that to sit beside you and hold your hand as a professional?
No, I wouldn't say babying. We're at our wits' end over here, Juan. We're at our wits' end.
No, not you guys, but the organization. Just the organization.
We thought this guy was going to be unbelievable. I'm speaking for the organization. We thought this guy was going to walk in the door and be unbelievable. We thought 2021 Vlad, Scott always talks about the back of the baseball card. We thought 2021 Vlad was the back of the baseball card. And he's hitting 260 since then. It hasn't even been close. Juan, it's the reason for the bald head. We're trying to figure out Vlad over here.
Yeah. No, there's some frustrating guys in that organization right now. And I don't think it starts and ends with Vlad, but it is wild to me for them to bring in another person to hold his hand. It seems weird to me personally.
I actually agree with you, Juan. It seems like babying him to me. At some point, this guy's been around baseball his entire life. He's been around professional hitters. He's had access to the best facilities, the best coaches, everything his entire life. If he can't figure it out without a buddy sitting next to him, I really don't know what to say about it. And yes, I think the potential is there. He may be one of the best hitters in baseball at some point in his career. He may go off and hit another 48, 50 bombs. I have no idea, but I'm pretty damn sure it's not going to happen with this organization.
You guys think, I'm curious y'all would know better than me, but do you think that his heart is not in it anymore because they got rid of his buddies like Gurriel and Teoscar?
Absolutely.
Nothing like that. No,
I do.
God, no. There's no such thing
there between y'all.
I do. I've thought that since the very beginning.
No, there's no such thing as that. That's no.
My way of arguing that would be that. So, do you guys remember Phillies versus Houston when they blew up Lance McCullers and everybody was wondering if Lance McCullers was tipping his pitches? And it just turned out that the Phillies were like relaying. They knew that lefties weren't going to get fastballs. Righties were probably going to get fastballs. And it was all coming from Bryce. It's pretty much just coming from Bryce, and Bryce sitting there and being this mind to see how the approach was coming down and relaying to everybody, going to Bohm, going to Schwarber, going to everybody in the lineup and kind of relaying what he's seeing when he goes up. Because he's one of the best hitters, but his vision is incredible. His discipline is incredible. So he applies that down the lineup. When we were at our best, that communication was coming through Vladdy to Lourdes to Teo well, not much Moreno. He was only there for a little piece of it, but it was a lot of that. The communication was happily happening between the Latin players. You would sit there and your camaraderie was there. When I see Vladdy hanging out with his group now, it's Barrios and Genesis Cabrera, right? That group now that he loves is two pitchers. So do I think that he is a player who is built off of family and love of the game and the Latin style of play when he goes and plays Latin ball and he's there with this group and it's so much more of a religion? Do I feel like he misses that and he doesn't have that taste anymore? 100%. And I feel like that leads to more frustration because not only are those players not there to support him in a way that he can listen to their language and relate to these people, but they're not there to support him with their bats. And they were all unified in that. And that's not there anymore. At least not for him, I don't think.
I was surprised when the organization moved those players because the vibes were young and fun. And I remember when they were in those playoff games and, they were the team that was young and was, to be fair, like the Orioles were, last year and probably still a little bit this year.
Juan, how dare you? It's your Mariners' fault that we did that to begin with. How dare you, sir?
Yeah, well, we had to. You guys are competition in the AL, so we had to do what we had to do.
That's worse. Juan said the Mariners can only win 1-0 games, and I'm like, Juan, is that how they beat the Blue Jays in the playoffs? I don't think those were 1-0 games, Juan.
Yeah, for some reason, Microsoft tablets weren't working that weekend, so we were all right.
Okay, is that it? Okay.
Well, Seattle liked it so much, they're like, we need Teoscar, but we need to sign him to sign a contract saying no curtain calls until the end of the game. All right, I'm going to go to the chat here and just get to some of these comments. Chucharoo says the organization babies a lot. Why is Manoah on the damn bench? Ooh. And I'm going to circle back to that. First, I'm going to get into some of these others as well. Juan, go ahead, actually.
I'm sorry, is Manoah on the major league bench right now?
Yes.
Between every start in Buffalo, he comes back to Toronto.
Bro.
That was
exactly.
That was my topic.
That's
Jen, that was my topic.
Because obviously we're going to get to that, but that's absolutely incredible. I can't wait to discuss that. Please go ahead, Scott.
So Mike then says, no, let's address the reality. It's not going to happen under this GM. Ultimately, everything comes back to Atkins. He's got to go like yesterday. And then Chooch goes, not wrong, Mike, but it's not just Atkins. It's Shapiro, 1,000%, because Atkins follows his lead. Will Rogers make the level of change in question? And then John Schneider gets brought up. So here is my question, and I'm going to throw to you, Adam. All right. Without replacing the head, right, of the body, without replacing Mark Shapiro, will anything change? Are these all just interchangeable pieces and we're going to see the same merry-go-round no matter what happens? Like if they get rid of John Schneider and all of this is coming from the top anyways, does it matter who that talking head is in the dugout?
I don't know. As far as like the Atkins of it all goes though, like for a long time, I know Joel was harping that like, why have we not paid Bo and Vlad yet? But like, what if we get to a point 24 months from now where we're like, man, thank God Atkins didn't pay these guys, right? Like, it's been rough. I'm still like a believer in Bo. I'm still mostly a believer in Vlad. Not for a $300 million contract like I was 3 years ago. But like, there's a path in the next 12 to 24 months here where those two aren't on the team anymore, but we have Barrios at a pretty good contract relative to the rest of the league, Gausman at a pretty good contract relative to the rest of the league. Yariel Rodriguez looks pretty good, small sample size asterisk, sure. And then all of a sudden we've got like 10 prospects coming back from what we traded Bo and Vlad for, and they're filling in, and like we have major league talent who's like close to being like really good for dirt cheap to supplement this World Series starting pitching lineup that we have. And now we're going, holy shit, Ross Atkins fucking really pulled one off there. That could have gone a lot worse. Maybe that happens.
With Ross Atkins generating and cultivating talent. He takes
Are you
Hall of Fame
kidding?
level talent and turns it into a guy that we're questioning is an average first baseman. I'm talking about like building a team of core players. Our core players on the field are Bo and Vladdy and Danny Jansen, and a bunch of guys who are not in any way, who have not either proven themselves or not performing or aging out. So I don't really trust their ability to create an offense. I don't.
We're going to come back to Manoah in a second here because I do want to talk that, but I feel like this is the perfect place. One of our topics today is let's get wild. If you were the GM and decided to shake things up in a major way, what would you do? And I'm going to start with my example here. And let me tell you right now, I know this is like blue sky insanity. Okay. So like I'm getting very, very wild with this, but let's say come the end of this season, the front office decides that this just isn't working. Bo and Vlad are not the guys. What if something like this goes down, where Mike Trout, who has that monster contract and is putting up an incredible year right now with the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles, however you want to say it, right? What if Vladimir Guerrero Jr., with 1 year left on his contract, goes to the Angels, where his dad won a World Series and was an absolute superstar, right? Now, he obviously is no longer a $300 million guy, even if he has an incredible 2025. I think that he has just been too inconsistent to be given the mega contract. Maybe he can still get that 5 years, $125 million, something like that, which would be far better for the Angels' budget. They move Trout to Toronto. The Blue Jays then bring up in Aroldis Martinez, go a little bit younger with some of the prospects, and move forward that way. Listen, I'm well aware of what a ridiculous idea this is, and who knows if there's even an appetite for it on either organization. But this is the kind of thing I'm looking for. So let's start. Go ahead, Adam.
I just don't like a 33-year-old Mike Trout who's been struggling to stay healthy in the recent lengthy history. Like, we just lived through it with George Springer and just complained about him for 15 minutes. And now, like, sure, the talent, the ceiling on Mike Trout is way higher than George Springer. But it's still like a 33-year-old guy that we're going to have to worry about. Is he going to play 120 games this year? That's my only pushback on that idea. I also, before we like have this conversation, I do need to say that like I love Bo and Vlad. I love them both.
So do I.
I just also like, if we can't re-sign them, we need to get like a real haul back. And I'm in the camp where like Bo, I would trade this season if it gets us like enough extra MLB level prospects that are like fucking ready to go, and we can get one more of them by trading him in August 1st as opposed to November 1st. I say pull the trigger on it. Him and Bo him and Vlad, both gone November 1st in my interpretation of reality. I don't think we can pay either of them the way they envision what they think they're worth. Like, I think they both in their head think, like, Vlad's going, I could be 2021 again. That's my ceiling. Pay me like that. And I just don't think that's responsible for us to be like, here's $300 million. And I don't think we can give that to either of them. I don't think Bo would take it even if we offered it to him. I think he wants out. So I'm saying, in my wild reality, it's trade them both, get as much as we possibly can back, give me 10 lottery tickets of top prospects in return, and then for the last 5, 6, 7 years of the kids, we've earmarked out in 2025, we're going to have to shell out $600 million between the two of them, right? Like, best case scenario, they both pan out and we're giving Bo 300 and Vlad 300 or 250 and 350, however it splits out, but $600-ish million, and I give all of it to Juan Soto.
Oh,
that's
beautiful.
My off season. I'm trading those guys away right now, restocking the cupboards. I know it's painful, but I'm restocking the cupboards, and then all that money that I've been going to Rogers for 7 years and saying, hey, on this day, we need $600 million ready. And Rogers has been going, okay. And then last year we said, can we make it 7 and get Shohei? And Rogers went, sounds good. And now we go, okay, we'll take Juan Soto instead. And then he goes to right field. George Springer comes into first. And we still have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball.
We do have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. Jen, you're the general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. How do you fix this team after this season?
So I mean, I'm right there with Adam, because I've been last season. I said that this team wasn't going to offer Bo or Vlad extensions, and or they wouldn't sign them. Right? They were not part of the long-term plan moving forward. And it seems to me that this team, this organization, has made that decision. And also, I think the players themselves have made the decision. Whatever number might even be on the table is not going to get it done. And so, I would rather cut bait now and get as much of a haul as you can, right? Rather than them being rentals next year or whatever the case might be. You trade them now, you get the haul that you can. And then as Adam said, you take that money and you invest it in somebody else, a year or two down the road. It's exactly what you do. Because I just don't see either one of these players being on this team past their walk years. And I'm personally okay if they go to another organization and end up being a superstar, because I don't think what we've seen here is enough to say, yes, we're going to take that leap of faith and offer that money. Right? So that's exactly where I'm at. Now, the question is, I suppose, because this started off with questions about Shapiro and Atkins and Schneider and so on and so forth. Is Atkins the one you want doing all of that?
Absolutely he is. Yeah, absolutely he is.
Well, I'm asking you guys, right? Like, how do you all feel? Craig's obviously, yep.
Absolutely.
Craig, can I just get in one thing about that, and then the floor is all yours?
Hit it.
I would just say that in my vision of restocking the cupboards, we're getting like 8 to 10 prospects back, and I just think prospects are lottery tickets. So whether it's Atkins or anybody else, I feel like it's a bit of a crapshoot. We want as many high-ranked guys as we can, and hopefully like 2 of them work out. And for me, that's kind of like where I'm like with Atkins is like, sure, why not? But Craig, go ahead.
Well, Adam, Mag, you are just knocking things out of the park here. I love that trade. I love everything you're saying. Yeah, the Fire Atkins crowd is driving me absolutely bonkers. If you think that Atkins should be fired because of the coaching and managerial hires, I am look beside you. That's me. I'm right there with you. But for those talking about the roster construction, you're driving me nuts. And probably a good thing that's not a topic, because I feel like I'll go off here. But Scott, I also really was intrigued by that Mike Trout idea. I like that a lot myself. The common theme that everybody's talking about here, and Jen brought it up as well, is and Jen was saying this from last year. There's a few of us in the Blue Jay fan base right now that have wrapped our heads around the fact that Bo and Vlad are not going to be long-term Toronto Blue Jays. So to Adam's point, how do you turn the page there? I love the idea of bringing in some really high upside prospects that don't match with the Vlad and Bo timeline, but they do match with the Schneider, Clement, Barger, or Relvis timeline. Bowden Francis, Hagen Dan. There's a lot of friends of the Walk-Off podcast that I'm still super excited about for their future with Toronto Blue Jay baseball. So those are the timelines I'd be trying to match up with. And I thought coming into this season that there was a blockbuster to be made with Houston at the trade deadline for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, granted, I certainly didn't see whatever this was. I know Juan's got to be smiling because Houston has just been Houston is thanking God for the Chicago White Sox, or they would be the worst team in baseball. Like, it's incredible. It's incredible the start that Houston's off to. But I'm still thinking there's a blockbuster. There's business to be done with the Houston Astros. I think, to answer Scott's question, if I was the GM, that's what I'd be looking at. But nothing. I thought Adam was right on the money. I would be taking Rogers. I'd be taking the decision makers out for a coffee. Like, anytime I ran into them in the elevator, anytime, I'd be mentioning, hey, don't forget, we need to have that Juan Soto conversation. Or, oh, don't forget, I want 5 minutes of your time to talk to you about Juan Soto. That would be my goal number 1, 2, and 3. And for all the Shadkins hate, I mean, finishing runner-up in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, guys, that's really, really impressive. That speaks well to the organization. And any player out there that, you know, your physical abilities and physical training and all that means something to you. Shohei raved about that excellence. Oh my God, what's the thing called they haven't done needing? You know what I'm talking about? That building.
Yeah, their players facility.
Yeah, the player facility. Yeah, raved about it. And if you're a player that covets privacy, well, none of the words or rumors or anything about Shohei to the Blue Jays came from the Blue Jay camp. So I actually think the Blue Jays did well this offseason to position themselves for a big splash in free agency going forward with the Ryu money and the Springer money coming off the books. And we know that Scott Boras is willing to do business with the Toronto Blue Jays at this point going forward, right? So I think going forward, I do think that there's a lot of opportunities, but to a lot of your points here, I think the landscape could look very, very different. Jen said it, you know, last year started to wrap her head around the fact that Bo and Vlad are not long-term Toronto Blue Jays.
Just bringing up Boras and extensions. Can I just say hashtag extend Yusei Kikuchi?
Heck yes. Yes, because that really does extend the window here with our pitching staff, which is literally the only thing that keeping this organization's head above water right now. I'm going to throw to you, Joel, in just a second here, but I do wish to say that we're all baseball fans. Everyone in the chat here, everyone on the panel. And I would like to thank everyone in the chat here for all your comments. It is really appreciated. And I'm going to say right now, they are very split on this whole thing. And a lot of them lean towards firing Atkins. And I will say, as baseball fans, there's always 3 strikes. For me, when it comes to a rebuild, you get 1 rebuild. Once you start giving an organization's front office the chance at 2 rebuilds or 3 rebuilds, I find it really tough to, and I'm not even, people get really frustrated with me sometimes because I am very prone to pointing out the things Atkins does do well. And Atkins does do a lot of things well. But here we are, 8 years into his tenure, still middling after this rebuild. And listen, there is something to be said for making the playoffs and being a wild card team as someone right now who struggled through the early 2000s and watching listen, I've seen some horrible Toronto Blue Jays team, and at least this, although it hasn't been great baseball to watch, at least they're competitive. I'll give them that. All right. So I, on the other hand, if they're going to rebuild, I mean, I feel like it's all the same thing anyways, but I would rather Shapiro fire Atkins and dodge that bullet one last time and try with somebody else, even though we all know that really this collaborative effort is kind of coming from Shapiro. But
you're forgetting about that competitive advantage that continuity gives us, though.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, Joel, I know that you feel differently than Craig does on this whole situation, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on worst case scenario, Bo and Vlad, because I do think it would be complete malpractice by this front office to, if they know that these guys aren't going to re-sign, to not get everything they can for them in this offseason. So with that in mind, and the idea that this is where we're at, if you're general manager, Joel Laflamme, what do you do? And where are you at on letting Atkins rebuild this for a second time?
Yeah, I don't know. I never trusted this approach from the outset. The run differential drop has only led to less success all around. When you have a 23-year-old team, $150 million in payroll gap, your run differential is 180 plus. And then you cut that in half, then you cut that by 20%, and then go into the negatives in a 4-year span. I don't want you running my team. You don't know.
Joel, they made the playoffs all 4 of those years, Joel. They made the playoffs all 4 of those years.
That should have been an upward ascent, though, Craig. Like, I even remember you saying that if we come out of Vladdy's tenure and we haven't won 2 World Series, it's an absolute shame on this front
a World Series, and you got me on that. Yes.
So it's tough for me to say if those were your expectations, and to come up short of those year after year, and to a point where right now we're a 14 and 15 team. Do we know that this is not the team all year? Like we're sitting here talking about like this is the team. The team needs something miraculous to happen to be a division winner. It needs something really important to happen to be a wild card contender. So for a 4-year stretch of being the youngest team, having $100 million available to bolster that team, that is the number 2-3 team in run differential in all of baseball, and then go to maxing out your payroll and being in the negative run differential, is not somebody that I want running this team. So yes, fire Atkins, fire Chapada, 100%.
Juan, you're the outsider. What do you think, buddy? If they've got to move Vlad and Bo at the deadline or in the offseason, you feel like that's a true statement, right? Like if this front office knows they're not going to re-sign, they have to trade them.
Yeah, I came into this topic with much different ideas. I was way off based off of where this conversation went. If I was the GM of the Blue Jays, I would take Manoah's key card from the facility away. Step 1, immediately. That's the first thing. Step 2 is I'm not putting all my eggs in a free agent basket like Ohtani or Soto. There's got to be a better plan B than there was this offseason for you guys when you missed out on that top free agent that was always going to be a tough sell to lure away from the Dodgers. Like, I think everybody knew going into the offseason it was most likely going to be the Dodgers. So, not investing everything and all your time into Soto just in case it doesn't go the way you want it to go. And then number 3 as the GM of the Toronto Blue Jays, and I would make this baseball wide, is to stop cutting off beer sales in the 7th inning stretch. Let's make that a full game situation. League wide, whether it's the 9th or the 18th inning. Okay, stop cutting us off. Those would be my moves. But yeah, they gotta trade these guys. They would have signed them to long-term contracts if that was going to be the outset. And luckily for them and all you guys, that didn't happen. I know everybody was kind of pounding their fist against the desk for a little while there. Just sign them to whatever they want, whether it's the $300-400 million contract. And yeah, just be happy that you guys aren't locked into that shit now.
So we are pushing 100 viewers right now on YouTube. So I do want to just thank you all for joining us for the first episode of Long Toss of the Year. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not. Obviously, your listenership is appreciative. I want to talk the Blue Jays' latest MLB debut, which was Addison Barger. And I will start with just saying I did get a real kick out of the special they ran on Addison Barger. I think no special has been run that has made a guy less endearing to a fan base. I know that friend of the show and Twitter aficionado Spencer, right? Spenred. He had a great tweet where he was like, even Addison Barger's dad couldn't buy him a hit in this series. Which was pretty much that special, was showing how rich Addison Barger's parents were. He grew up with a baseball diamond, like a full-on baseball diamond in his backyard. Despite that, this kid's got talent. And so I do want everyone's initial thoughts on Addison Barger and what he has done. I want everyone's thoughts on, and we'll start with you, Jen. Curious what your thoughts were on taking a kid in his Major League Baseball debut who has never played left field even once in the minors. And I'm aware that, there's this idea that the outfield's the outfield, but we have talked to many ball players. We've been very lucky to have many guys come on this show who have straight up said that's not the case. They're all very different. There's similarities. It's like playing the infield, right? Some guys can play short. Some guys, like most of the Blue Jays, play second base. So, Jen, what was your thoughts on them starting Addison Barger in his debut in left field? And what are your thoughts on the kid in general?
I don't understand why, if your plan is to have him play left field, that you don't have him get a few reps in left field before calling him up, right? Because they had to have an inkling in their mind. This is a position we are going to want him to play when we call him up. So why would you not have him play that position in Buffalo so that, you know, he gets a little bit of a sense of what it's all about before the bright lights and big action? That to me is a bit of a mishandling of him. And I'd love to hear an explanation on why they didn't, you know, have him start a few games in left field with the Bisons. And I completely missed that special on him. So I had absolutely no idea how rich his parents were and that people were a little bit mad. So anyways, but yeah, I mean, you know, waiting for him to get a hit, I suppose. And I don't know when that will come. But you know, he looks comfortable out there and has done a fine enough job playing a position he's never played. So clearly the guy's, you know, clearly he's able to sort of, you know, make the adjustment and kind of run with it. He did take a really wonky route. What was that, his second game?
Mm-hmm.
Really bad route. But again, you can't blame a guy who's never done it before.
This
Joel, Addison Barger. Or go ahead, Juan. Sorry, buddy.
I was just gonna say this episode of what we're doing here has been eye-opening to see the complete dysfunction of your guys' organization right now. What the hell? How do you call a kid up, throw him in left field, and say, "I know you've never played here before, but figure it out, kid"? The hell? What are we doing? And take Manoah's card key away. What the fuck are we doing, Blue Jays? You guys got to get it together. This is crazy.
It is like, it's baffling, right?
It's obvious stuff. I can't
Should I
believe
just start
it's
talking
happening.
about Nate Pearson?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
We just want to
What
keep
the
it
hell?
going. I have nothing wrong. I have no issues with Addison Barger in this situation. I'm kind of an Ernie Clement guy. Been an Ernie Clement guy for a little while.
Yeah.
When he's not getting reps, I'd like to see more games where Davis Schneider and Ernie Clement are playing. Like, these things aren't mutually exclusive. You don't have to, because one is in, the other one can be in. You can have them both play. So it's more of a situation where I'm just like, let's just throw it away as the first 30 games and we're giving guys Major League Baseball reps, if that's the way it is, and we're trying to see what we've got across all levels. Like, that's the only way that I can try to quantify. I like Addison Barger's hitting really, really well in the minors. You're going to bring him up. You're going to see what you've got. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I want Ernie Clement out of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of that situation where you've got another guy. He's lefties. You're going to do that as well. But, you know, big stretch of 0-4, and you've got a guy who's hitting about 290. Doesn't walk a lot. Ernie doesn't walk a lot, but it's 290. Makes contact. A little bit of
You
pop.
know what I do really like about Ernie
Plays left
Clement
field.
and Davis Schneider is that they are two guys who were dealt blow after blow. They are two guys that had to work for every single inch that they got. They earned it. They earned their spots. And listen, I'm not saying that Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Kevin Biggio aren't very good baseball players. I'm not saying Addison Barger isn't. I'm not saying any of that thing. But maybe there is an element to this clubhouse that without like making it a class thing and like the rich kids, it does feel a little bit like guys who have never really had a bunch of obstacles to overcome. And that's starting to kind of rear its ugly head, maybe more often than it was back when it was guys like Lourdes and Teo. And because Lourdes and Teo, Cuban, Dominican Republic, they didn't come from a baseball. I mean, everyone's a baseball family when it comes to Cuba and the Dominican Republic. I know just spending a little time in the DR made me realize that. But when I say not coming from a baseball family, I mean, they're not coming from major league fathers, right? Like they had
silver spoon type players. Let's say that.
Exactly. Thank you. You get what I'm saying. So I do wonder if like the scrappiness of Ernie and Davis is something that this clubhouse desperately needs, but the analytics are showing that they shouldn't be there. And that's another thing. I love analytics, but man, I've lost all faith in the Blue Jays analytics. And Craig, I'm curious on your thoughts on just the analytics that this club is using. And if you feel like maybe that's part of the problem at this point, is that there's a lack of guts, a lack of gumption within this clubhouse, or am I maybe making a mountain out of a molehill here?
No, I don't think there's any doubt about it. First of all, that's part of why I'm excited about Atkins, is because for the first time in Blue Jay franchise history, it's an organization that develops players. Just to get real quick, because I'm really excited about Addison Barger. That's A. B, I would have Ernie Clement in the leadoff spot, Joel. He's got a 500 on-base percentage leading off an inning. He's a spark plug. I would try him before I kept trying Bo instead of Springer in the leadoff spot. And as far as, I'm so sorry, Scott, I lost, what was the question there? I lost it there. The analytics.
Your thoughts on the Blue Jays analytics and how much you believe in this analytics department.
What drives me nuts, because I love when you say, Scott, that you love analytics. I think we should all love and embrace analytics. Analytics should spit out, here's what today's 1 to 9 should be based on all the statistical information we have. And where the Blue Jays put a period at the end of that. I think it should be a comma and a but. Where's the manager's feel? Here's the lineup printout, 1 through 9. It's telling me I should have X as my third baseman in the 7-hole today. I, as the manager, know that on the flight coming home yesterday, everyone got sleep. He didn't, because his sister-in-law is having a tough pregnancy. I'm actually going to go with this guy in tomorrow. It's saying that I should have X as my first baseman in the 5 spot. Well, last time I saw this batter against this pitcher, I pulled my hair out. But when I saw this guy against this pitcher, I loved it. I'm going to make that move. So it should be a guideline, yes. But where is the feel during the game? We all couldn't believe a couple years ago, if you guys remember how stunned Blake Snell was when he was taken out of that World Series game by Kevin Cash and the Rays in the 5th inning a few years back. And that, for me, was the tipping point of all of this. The Rays, they based everything just on the analytics. Barrios last year with the Blue Jays. Didn't we live it ourselves? If it's all based on analytics, and I'm not even joking when I say this, throw us in the dugout and we'll do a live from the game. The fans will love it. If it's just analytics, if it's just reading off a piece of paper, as stupid as many of you think I am, I can read off of a piece of paper, folks. So literally,
I like this. Win a chance to manage the Blue Jays, and you just put the little headpiece in, and you got your iPad, and there you go. Away you go.
If all we're doing is reading off this and that's the script and we're not deviating from it, what on earth is the difference? So I love that you say you love the analytics, Scott. I think it'd be totally foolhardy. We have all this information. To not take that into account seems negligent to me, seems ignorant, dare I say, to me. So absolutely, I want analytics part of the game. But the Toronto Blue Jays have analytics as the be-all and end-all, and I do not get it.
Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to talk the Seattle Mariners for a little while, and then we're going to get to all of our topics. We're not going to spend too much time on the Mariners until Juan starts bringing his fan base into the chat, and then we will expand that. But I did want to talk the Mariners briefly here because there are a lot of similarities between the Blue Jays and the Mariners, and I know that one of the things that was plaguing Seattle to start the season is that their big studs, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, they were not the aces that the Mariners organization and fan base were hoping they would be. So Juan, we'll start with you. This is starting to work itself out. I know Kirby's last outing was like literally insanity. It was just like, okay, this guy is a top 3 starter in all of baseball. Do you feel like the pitching has kind of found its footing in Seattle right now? And where are you at with the Mariners and their chances in the AL West?
Oh yeah, totally. They've sorted it. I know, like, I think the entire MLB knew that the Mariners were going to live and die off their pitching. They did a lot of things to try and correct the offense, but the Mariners have had 16 consecutive starts after today where their starting pitchers have allowed 2 or less runs.
Oh my gosh.
16 straight. So they've corrected it. The team ERA over that stretch is 1.47, and that includes the bullpen. So
is that good?
That's going to lead to a lot of wins. There's a reason that Mariners are enjoying baseball right now. The pitching has corrected itself from 1 to 5. It's Luis Castillo that's been 3 quality starts in a row. Kirby, obviously, like you said, 7 innings, 12 Ks, 1 walk, 2 hits last night. Bryce Miller has been a pleasant surprise and has done really, really well, carrying at 1.89 or something like that. You got Logan
Logan.
Gilbert is your 3 guy, and then even Hancock, who was a 6th overall pick in the 5 spot, who has strung together 4 consecutive quality starts. On top of that,
Shit, you got Brandon Wu and
Brian Wu's
Brash
going to come
coming
back in
back
like
too. Yeah.
Wu's going to be back in like 10 days. He's
Yeah.
carried a 0 ERA in AAA through 2 rehab starts and is at like a 15.5 Ks per 9 or something like that. Unfortunately, Brash is probably done for the season. They shut him down yesterday.
Oh,
So
they did. Oh, I didn't
they
know
shut
that.
down
That's a
Brash, so
bummer.
that we're not going to get
Canadian
much
kid?
this season. But Canadian kid, you hate to see it. That slider is one of the best pitches in the league, but the starting pitching has corrected itself, and now that's kind of the barometer for if you want to be like the Mariners. Those kind of numbers you have to put up as a starting pitching staff and the bullpen. So, the Blue Jays probably got a little bit of work looking at you, Kevin Gossman, not including today.
Now,
Joel,
Juan, you mentioned that 0 ERA. Alec Manoah also has a 0 ERA in triple. I mean, there's a lot of numbers in front of the 0, but still similar.
You gotta play a game in the MLB to get an official.
Is that it? Is that what it is?
Joel, what are your thoughts on the Seattle Mariners? This AL West is kind of wide open here. Do you think the Mariners have a shot at the division?
Yeah, I think they have the shot at the division. Like Houston and that start is, equally the position that you're in right now, being in the lead. But seeing Houston, 7-19, I don't even know where they are. Something absolutely
9 and
abysmal
19.
in the basement. 9-19.
Yeah.
That's just who would have ever guessed that Houston would jump to a record where Oakland's in third, right?
Yeah,
like
love
just
to
saying
see it.
that seems strange. Oakland
Love to
is in
see it.
third. It just, after like 4 games, you shouldn't ever say that, right? So, so yeah, I really do. I think that they've got a shot. Like like Juan's saying, Gilbert's leading the league in strikeouts right now. Luis Castillo, we know how nasty he is when he wants to be. That's a hell, and it's a ballpark for pitchers too, right? So it's a really great place to, if you're going to overload and you're going to live and die by great pitching, that's a hell of a place to go and pitch.
Just
Cal
ask
Raleigh, Cal Raleigh behind the plate. You got a switch hitting catcher with good pop. Ty France is hitting the ball really hard, really unlucky to start the season this year. But I think that those numbers are going to pan out a little bit. And like they're kind of a situation where we are with their offense. Like JP Crawford is underproducing what he did last year. Julio had a really big home run drought to start the year. I think he's the type of streaky hitter that when they come in bunches. He's the type of guy who he'll go on that stretch that he had to second half of last season was a once in a century type stretch of baseball. So when he gets going, the team gets on his back. So, and he hasn't really yet this year. So that they're in first place and they haven't had to ride on Julio to get there, that's good pitching. And when he gets going, you think that'll.
I know we spent the first half of this podcast basically talking about the Toronto Blue Jays' hopeful generational player, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who hasn't really panned out the way that maybe we had hoped he would. Jen, Julio Rodriguez, on the other hand, he is the real deal. Would you say that's safe to say at this point?
I would say so. Yeah. Absolutely. Is there evidence to suggest it's not?
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he absolutely looks like the real deal. And what a difference that makes, right? When your stud is your stud,
Do you give that Mariners front office some credit because they did take a leap on him, right? Like they signed him to a fairly major contract. A contract that, let's face it, the Blue Jays front office would never do, right? With that, the Blue Jays front office, they need all the information on the planet before they make any kind of move. And this was definitely a little bit of a leap of faith in a 19-year-old kid that just had a bunch of raw talent. It's a flip side of a coin, right? Because we're seeing right now with Vladdy, I know a lot of us are like, maybe it's a good thing that we don't still owe him $250 million over the next 9 years. But on the other hand, you look at a San Diego with Fernando Tatis Jr. and you're like, oh man. I mean, there's still a lot of years left before we can truly judge that deal, but it's looking better every day.
Right.
What are your thoughts on a front office's ability to take that kind of leap?
I mean, I would love to know what the difference is between a front office such as the Blue Jays not making that leap of faith on Vlad early, right? Versus the thinking behind a front office that does take a leap on a player. What kind of data are they working with? What kind of background information they have access to that they're paying maybe more attention to versus just raw talent. Like it does, I'd love to know what the mindset is behind that, right? Like what exactly was the tipping point for the GM to either say yes or no early on?
Jen, to your point, don't the Tampa Bay Rays wish they had more information on Wander Franco? Because that's become a nightmare contract for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, talent is talent and everybody can recognize talent. So what are the other factors then that makes a front office say, yes, this is the guy. We are willing to stand behind this person, this player, and put our money behind this player before we really even see anything from him. So yeah, I mean, gutsy move, I suppose, doing that, and good for them for having it pay off, and I guess conversely, good for the Jays front office for not having done that with Vlad and Bo, at least as it's looking at this point. But man, would it not just be like, how much different would things be if the Blue Jays young projected superstars were playing like young projected superstars?
Mm-hmm.
Not to give you guys PTSD, but I mean, you could just look at Atlanta and what they did with contracts wise. And, you guys went from Alex Anthopoulos to your current situation. And then Alex went down to LA and now in Atlanta.
Calm down, Joel.
I was thinking about this yesterday, Juan, while driving. This is what I was thinking about, was the success of the teams that he subsequently went to, but I digress.
Yeah.
Adam, do you believe in 10-year, $300 million contracts? Not that they exist. We know they exist, but
I've heard of them. I check under my pillow every night, but that tooth fairy has not proven to exist for me just yet. I mean, no, generally speaking. I mean, if you pay big money and you get a World Series out of it, it was worth it, even if the last 8 years aren't worth it, right? By and large, they don't work out. I mean, I know we can point to the Atlanta experiment and yada yada. It's still early in that. Like, let's have that talk in 5 years. Also, how much money, if we had have gone back to Bo and Vlad's first season with the Jays, how much money of a contract would we be happy with them having right now? Like, if we gave them $200 million over 10 years, would we still be like thrilled to be paying them $20 million a year? Right? I don't know. Maybe not. I do want to just say
$200 million over 10.
I'm not a fucking money guy, Joel. I'm just
don't throw money. So. Don't throw numbers out there. I'm like 200 million over 10.
Sure, of course. Then we're fucking happy with that.
23.
Okay, $11 million over 35 years. Would we be happy with that? Yeah, of course we would. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that deal, 200 million in their rookie years for 10 years was a pretty amazing deal.
Okay, 300 million over 10 then. I don't know. Point being, Julio Rodriguez, I just want to say what's fair is fair. Slumping this year.
Well, he's hitting 280. Hold on.
Oh,
he's hitting like 280.
Am I misreading his OPS plus at 95?
No. Like his average? Power is not there, but I mean.
Oh, okay. But that matters, right? Like that matters. Like batting average is great, but like so are doubles and power. Despite a 95 OPS plus, still better than Vladdy this year. So there's that. Career numbers, just because if we're talking like, does Julio look like a safe bet that's working out? Sure, but also we're only 3 years into the Julio experiment, and Vladdy looked pretty safe the first 3 years of the Vladdy experiment. So it is still early with Julio. 132 OPS plus so far in his career. At this point for Vladdy, 136 OPS plus. Numbers pretty comparable, other than Vlad have more power. But I would say with Julio, I'm just not like sold that like this is a lock it in. We can already check it off as a success. There's a lot of question marks.
Also
Julio
plays
is
Gold Glove center field.
Gold Glove center field and 30-30 guy in 2 back-to-back years, which I think.
Yeah, but how many balls does he had go right through the webbing? Because Vladdy's got like a half a dozen of those. So
nice, you got me there.
All right,
Thank you.
I'm a believer that Julio is like a superstar. I'm just like, again, I think we got to be fair.
I'm still a believer that
numbers.
Vladdy is a superstar. We're talking about the cover athlete of MLB The Show.
Yeah.
3.5 weeks into the MLB season, like he's washed, right? Like,
no, you're right. You're right, Joel. Okay, so we're gonna go to chat real quick here. Chucharu says
Vlad has been trending down for 4 years in a row now. So
yes, indeed.
I'm just sure. Like, this is where, like, okay, the hatred that like Vlad gets, and then Bo doesn't seem to get the same level of like, why does he get a pass? He's having like a worse season than Vlad is. It's because Bo hasn't been trending down for 3 years in a row.
No.
That's why. Like, I have a lot more confidence that Bo is still going to lead the American League in hits this year than Vlad's going to touch 25 home runs. So there's a sample size with Vlad now, and it's not
which
trending
is all
good.
Very true. It is very true that Bo has been more consistent over the last 3 years with
every year of his career except for 2021.
I'm the biggest Bo fan. I'm the number one Bo fan in the world. I've done, I think, more individual Bo Bichette videos.
I'm the number 2 Bo Bichette fan, and I still think we should trade him August 1st.
Yeah, see, that's the separation point, is that the number 1 Bo fan would never trade Bo.
Okay, well, have fun with your fucking compensatory draft pick. I hope it gets you a really good
no.
See, second baseman in 5 years.
No, but now we're going back to Atkins and Shapiro and having generational talent that comes on and sets records for your team at an age. At an age, they set first, youngest player to this milestone, youngest players to this milestone. If you can't lock those players up and you can't develop those players once they come to the major league, if they come up and they peak before they deal with major league coaching, if you are a general manager who believes that first-time managers are the ones that are going to develop your top-tier talent into being more, right? Like, there's all of these mistakes are front office mistakes. It's not the talent. Bo and Vladdy are generational talent type players, okay? They don't have the right people around them when it comes to the lineup or the people building the lineup or when it comes to coaching. It's not, that's the problem. And I'm baffled to think that what it's going to do to my heart when Bo Bichette leaves, what it's going to do to my heart when Vladdy leaves, that you couldn't lock these guys up and make these guys into, they are generational talents. A guy who led the league twice in hits before he's 26, who will always lead the league in hits pretty much if he's on a good team. Vladdy, a guy who beats Joe DiMaggio's record for home runs by a 22-year-old. And you can't turn that into a star player. That's not the player's fault.
Joel, I'm going to say right now, Joel, that I too am worried about your heart. We saw what happened when Lourdes and Teo went. I don't know if you can handle Bo and Vlad leaving, like, buddy.
It's just like, there's the culture is gone. You just rid yourself of culture and heart and feeling and a love to come to the ballpark and a reason for these guys to band together and be a unified team. You throw all those things away, and then you get rid of the guy who reminds me of Derek Jeter, the guy who hits the same way that Derek Jeter hits. And when I see Derek Jeter, I saw, and everybody will be like, oh, Derek Jeter is the most overrated player of a generation. No, he's a guy who played 17 seasons, played 155 games, batted .315 every year. That's the type of guy that you build your team around. You've got another one. There's another one that's come around in the last 60 years of baseball. He's on our team, and we're going to let him walk. We're going to trade that. That's my heart. My heart's
and I agree with you, Joel. if there's any possible way to lock Bo up, that is my preference. But what I am saying is that if he has already decided he's gone, it would be
then fire the president and
Sure.
GM and get somebody else in there to try to reestablish those relationships so they don't.
Maybe.
Okay,
yeah,
and this should have happened a year ago.
It should have happened
a year and a half ago when Manoah
or at
fell
least
apart.
it should have. I'm with you on Atkins for this offseason. I mean,
We got the renovations done. What do we need these guys for? That's all they were there for, right? The renovations are done. No, you cast them aside. Those are the guys to cast aside, not the people who you buy the jerseys of.
Hey, I have a Shapiro jersey actually hanging in my closet, so you can take that back.
Dude,
I haven't worn it in public ever, and I probably won't, but
those things are incredibly flammable.
Okay, we're gonna move on real quick here and go to chat. First, I want to say, Joel, I love you, buddy. Thanks for being on the show. Your passion is just it's impressive.
Bo Bichette is not Derek Jeter defensively. I just want to get that out. I was fucking holding it. Bo Bichette is not Derek Jeter. Oh my god. Anyways, go to the chat. Scott, go to the chat.
He's better defensively, is what you're saying, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so he's better than Derek Jeter. Okay.
No, Derek Jeter is better defensively.
Not this.
Okay.
not this year.
I'm going to try and go to chat for the 50th time here. All right.
Yeah.
So, just speaking of mega contracts, Chucharu says it just feels like the difference between private versus corporate ownership has to be a major factor, and that probably is true. How many doors need to be knocked on with a signature for a signing to happen, right? Like, how many times does this paper need to be passed around, and how many people need to give their little John Hancock for it to go on? So,
but Scott, not just that, the corporations, they're beholden to the shareholders. They need to turn a profit. They run their business significantly different. Look how Mark Cuban runs the Dallas Mavericks. That's his toy. He makes money over in this sector. The Steinbrenners, they make their money over here. They put it back and they use the team as a toy. That's a great point by Chucharu. I hope I'm saying it right, because that's a conversation that we all could have been having forever. Is why that's Scott Boris's whole point. How on earth does the Toronto Blue Jays have any budget, let alone the budget that it's at? They're owned by Rogers. Like, that is a separate conversation that we could definitely have.
Okay, so this is what we are now going to do. We are now going to go around the horn here and get everybody's topic. All right. Love that smile, Joel. All right. So we are going to start with you, Juan. All right. Everyone is bringing a topic to the table. Juan, what are you bringing for us today?
Yeah, it's something that we discussed on the Mariners edition extensively throughout the offseason, and it's paying dividends now. And I think that's the emphasis and importance on the bullpen, not only being able to identify arms, but then develop them. I think you guys have seen it a couple times with ex-Blue Jays going over to the Mariners and exceeding performance-wise. Saucedo's one, Thornton's another one, who I think is carrying like a sub-1 ERA at this point in the season. And I banged my fist against the desk for building out the bullpen, and now they got 7, 8, 9 guys, if you count Santos and Brash healthy, who are dominant and can get outs and keep their ERA really, really low. As far as roster construction goes, I love when teams put an emphasis on the bullpen, because if you can get to those 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th innings, and not give a lead up, it goes a long ways at the end of the season when you look at the standings. So importance of bullpen roster construction was my topic.
Yeah, Jerry DiPoto is nailing his dream of 54% wins, buddy. It's really starting to play in here. Yeah. No, but you're right, though. The Mariners bullpen is very impressive, and their ability to get the maximum out of guys that maybe have slipped through other people's hands. I mean, Taylor Saucedo is a great example. He has been nails in that Seattle bullpen. Seattle kid, so he's come home, right? So he's very excited to be there. I think that means something. But one thing that stood out to me, and listen, there's lots of ways to skin a cat, I guess, is basically what I'm going to get at here. But one thing that Saucedo brought up when we had him on the show over the off season that kind of stood out to me was when he went to the Mariners, they took him aside and they had a big 2-hour talk. They had all the analytics guy there, and basically they were like, listen, Taylor, you're using 2 pitches. You have 5 pitches. And we think that you're just going to be a much better bullpen pitcher if you're using all of these pitches. Why aren't you using these pitches? And I mean, he didn't come right out and say it, but I mean, the answer was obviously, well, Toronto told me to only use these 2 pitches, right? So, and there's guys where eliminating pitches does work for. But there is something to be said for an organization who's able to target a pitcher, know what they're throwing, and be able to either give them the freedom to use their full arsenal or have the wherewithal to be like, listen, we got to reel you in a bit. These are the pitches that are working best for you. So I will give Seattle a lot of credit for that with guys like Trent Thornton is a great example. And I think Blue Jays fans all saw flashes of Trent Thornton being a very good pitcher. Shit, in 2019, he had the most innings by a Blue Jays starter, which still blows my mind to think about. But, you know, what Seattle is getting out of Thornton right now is incredible. And I'm not too sure, like, I don't dislike this Blue Jays bullpen. Actually, I lean far closer to liking it. But I do worry a little bit about how much they're being used right now and the lack of depth at the minor leagues. I mean, every time Nate Pearson comes up, Adam has a little bit of an aneurysm.
Well, no, now it's not aneurysm so much as like sad nostalgia, because every time I see him pitch, I think this genuinely might be the last time he ever pitches in Major League Baseball.
But it might be the appearance that turns him around and he becomes the Nate Pearson we all thought he could become, Adam.
That's good, because I got that bust in...
there you go.
Got that bust already sculpted for him. So,
as far as the bullpens, I think we might all agree here. The 2014-2015 Kansas City Royals changed it all. They made it a 6-inning game. They had guys specifically for that 7th inning, specifically for that 8th inning. Then they had Wade Davis to close it in that 9th inning. And we lived it. Toronto Blue Jay fans, we lived it. If you weren't ahead of them, and then the very next season, we kept running into Andrew Miller, right, and Cleveland. So right around that time, things really changed from a bullpen standpoint, and Major League Baseball philosophies changed as well. You'll never see a pitcher have a complete game anymore. After 5 or 6 innings, they're looking towards the bullpen. So to your point, Scott, about being overworked, but I hope that's not going to be the case, because so many of those pitchers are now conditioned where that's the case. I always coveted a reliever over a starter. If he could have been a starter or a reliever, I'd always want him to be a reliever, but especially in this day and age. If you have a good reliever in this day and age, I can leverage that reliever in high leverage 2 or 3 times a week. That starter, I get him once a week. And what if that one start, the offense put up, bad example because we're Blue Jay fans, but what if in that one start, the offense put up a bunch of runs anyway? So I didn't need that good starter on that day anyway. So the emphasis on bullpens, we're coming up on almost like a decade now. Wow, since that Kansas City team, the emphasis in the last decade has absolutely been real. And guys, the proof is in the pudding. Look at the contracts for these relievers. Up, 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 up.
Joel and Jen, I'm going to throw to you in just a second. First, going to chat here. Michael Borland says, if Juan trimmed his beard a little, he'd be Jose Batista. Kind of sounds like him. Which, to say that when Rowdy Tellez exists, I just can't wrap my head around. But, good for you, buddy. You're really moving up the look-alike scale here.
I'll take that upgrade. I usually get Rowdy, so I'll take Batista. No problem.
Jen,
that's no shade on Rowdy. We love Rowdy too.
No, of course.
I've been getting a lot of Danny Vogelbach this year, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Oh,
Danny Burgers, baby.
Poor Danny Vogelbach. I mean, sorry.
All right. So, Jen, when you your feelings on the importance on bullpens in general, and how do you feel about the Blue Jays bullpen this year, especially when you see a guy like Chad Green go down just recently?
Yeah, I mean, bullpen injuries highlight how important the bullpen is, right? And, to start the season, the Jays had several pieces missing, several key pieces. And, I personally, I'm a bit nostalgic for the days when you would see a starter go pitch a full game. Yeah. I'm going to be very honest.
Yes.
Because it's just such a feat to accomplish, and just to see a guy out there and grind it out and actually, complete the game or at least get into the 8th. I miss those days, but those days are gone. So fine, here we are. And And so, yeah, bullpen management is absolutely key. And I do find sometimes watching the Blue Jays to question the way that the bullpen is being used. Unfortunately. So there are teams that I think do it better than other teams. And I don't know why that is, if it's just the personnel that they have, or, there's nothing more volatile than a reliever, right? One season they're fabulous, and the next season you're not getting what you expected out of them.
Joel, I'm going to change the question up just a little bit for you because I'd love to hear your rankings of Blue Jays bullpen pitchers and who you trust at the top, and kind of scale down your top 4 out of the pen. And Jimmy Garcia has
we
been
probably start there.
Yeah, right? Isn't that a wild? Joel, not to pump Atkins tires. I know this is not the time.
Oh, let's the pitching. There's compliments to be thrown towards the pitching on this staff, right? Like, this is not, when I talk negative about Atkins, this is not a unified across the board. He gets F's in every department. There's departments that he has succeeded very well in, and the pitching is one of those categories. So yeah, no, Jimmy is one of my topics was the amount of time that it takes for the managerial mindset of how we see a player to take its effect on players, right? Like, I use Kikuchi as an example, Barrios as an example, now Garcia as an example, hopefully Varsho as an example, but of a 1 year where they don't do what you want them to do. And it takes an entire year for them to become the Kikuchi in that first season. But finally, everything sits in, and there's the Kikuchi Barrios. Really rough first season, but then everything sits in. And then what Juan was saying, weirdly enough, is that, like, when I think of Pete Walker, I think of a guy who really tries to focus on getting your fastball located properly and working your great secondary pitch, right? Very much, I'm not saying that Pete Walker only focuses on 2 pitches, but when I think of Taylor Saucedo and how he was probably used for the Blue Jays, it's very much fastball slider against lefties, right? Very much limiting your repertoire, right? So when these pitchers go elsewhere and they're said, well, you know what? You may be envisioned as a specialist over here, but we think if you apply these other pitches to your repertoire, that'll really, fill out the entire resume of what you can give to us. And maybe we can throw you out there more occasionally against righties, and you're not so much a situational pitcher as you are, right? If we can get these other weapons working kind of in your repertoire. And I think that that's what you're hearing out of Thornton and out of Saucedo, going out to Seattle. And your kind of ranking of, like Romano is always going to be up there. It's how they're used, right? Like Tim Meza last year put up a mind-boggling season, the way that he was used in situations where here comes Jordan, here comes Tucker. We're going to use them against the 2 lefties and maybe kind of pitch around the righty, because there's another lefty right behind him in those situations where you've got 3 out of 4 batters coming up. One's a righty, pitch around the righty, attack the lefties, right? Those types of situations where it is very situational. So my hierarchy is pretty much still going to kind of be the basics of, Romano, Swanson, now Garcia at the top. And then the other guys more, situationally used when you want a guy to get into a double play ball, or you want a righty to swing on a slider. It's more situational beyond the guys who just show utter dominance towards both sides of the plate.
Love that, buddy. Great topic, Juan. So we started 15 minutes late here, and apologies to everyone in chat who is waiting around thinking that this just wasn't going to happen again. But we did figure it out. We do normally end off at 6. I do want to ask our panelists here, does anyone need to go right at 6, or if we go 10 extra minutes, is everyone cool with that? Yeah? Okay. So that's what we're going to do then. We're going to go to about 6:10, 6:15, and then we'll call her there. Again, thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you to everyone in chat. If you haven't hit the like button, please do. It definitely helps. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Before we go to the next topic, there's a great question here from Michael Borland that I want to get the answer from Juan. He says, what does Juan see in Kikuchi now in comparison to when he was in Seattle?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. That was one where I didn't think it was going to work out. I thought you guys overpaid him, but he proved me wrong. I think he was kind of that fringe guy. I think he had like a 5 ERA in Seattle, but the potential was always there. He had that good fastball, and I know Scott, you and I have had a lot of conversations. Happy for him, and I love the fact that he's done so well for himself that there is talk about a potential extension, like Jen mentioned earlier. Not sure what the difference is, to be honest with you. I wasn't that locked into Mariners broadcast day in and day out back then when he was with the team. But yeah, I mean, obviously he had a very good season last season, and now he's shown this season that it's not necessarily a fluke. Joel had mentioned the locating the fastball is key, and I think that played a big part for his success. So that would be my takeaway is fastball location and keeping it down and keeping the ball in the park as much as possible, because he was prone to home runs, and I think he's cut that down drastically from when he was with Seattle to now.
So my topic kind of has been touched on, so I'm going to throw it out there quick before we continue to go around the horn here, and that's just, and I forget if it was you, Jen, that brought it up, or I forget who brought it up. Anyways, just that it took Kikuchi a full year to kind of find himself in Toronto. It took Barrios kind of a full year after, I mean, he was excellent after the deadline when they acquired him and had a heck of a September that really helped the Jays make the playoffs. And but then he really did fall off a cliff. And we saw Dalton Varsho really struggle. I know he's not a pitcher, but really struggle in that first season, that transition into Canada and to become a part of the Jays. And we're witnessing a Dalton Varsho here that we all kind of hoped he would be. I don't know if we've seen enough quite yet to fully be like, you know what, maybe this trade wasn't quite as lopsided as we thought. And that's where my question is for everyone here. What are your thoughts on the Dalton Varsho for Gabriel Moreno, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. trade now? And do you get the sense that maybe this does, I'm not saying the Jays win it by any means, but maybe this is a little bit more of a wash than we had originally felt like it was last year? Joel, I'll start with you because I'm curious.
Yeah. Once again, I'm super adamant that you would have kept the offense. I didn't want to lose my corner outfielders. The concepts that you need pop from right field, left field, third base, first base, classic baseball concepts, right? Defense is great, but stopping what's in the park as opposed to contributing outside the park, I think is always something that is very hard to argue which one is more valuable. I like to think that it's offense personally. But with Varsho, is the trade ever going to be something that Lourdes re-signing for what he re-signed only added more fuel to my rage, to be completely honest. So, but I see Dalton. I just eliminate that. I just don't look at Dalton with the history of the trade. I can't judge him. It's not his fault. It's not his fault that he was traded. Okay, so I just got to look at him as a baseball player, and he is exceptional to watch in the field. And this is a guy who's been an outfielder for all of 2 years. He's been an outfielder for all of 2 years. This is a catcher. This is a catcher playing the outfield the way that
which honestly,
Willie
when you
Mays
say, dude, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that.
Oh
like,
yeah, you forgot that that's a catcher, and that our borderline Gold Glove third baseman part-time is also a catcher. We like to find amazing defense on the field from catchers. We're incredible at that. When it comes to Atkins taking catchers and saying, you know what, these guys can do other things. No one like him. And so, but leveling that bat out, getting to being a 25 home run guy, being a 230 batting average, an on base, a 305, 310. If he can get to be a league average hitter, if he is a 100 OPS plus player, that's a great baseball player. And that's, I think, all you have to sit back and say, is he perfectly used in this situation? No, he's being thrown in the fourth hole, right? Is that his fault? No. It's not his fault how he's being used. It's not his fault how the team is built around him. But, if he can be a league average guy at the plate, then that defense makes him a really good baseball player.
Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Just wanted to jump in there and say that I don't know if you guys knew this, but when he was younger, Addison Barger's dad once hired a catcher to teach him to play left field. So there you
go. See what you did there.
Hey.
All right, Jen, do you think there's a world where Dalton Varsho ever hits 30 home runs and has that sort of power?
I don't know.
Is that asking too much?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that it is. And yeah, I mean I'm with Joel on the, giving up offense for defense and maybe not necessarily being in love with that concept. And unfortunately, and I know people are totally sick of this. Unfortunately, I don't think you can talk about trading away Moreno without looking at having kept Kirk, right? Like, I just don't think the two are completely separate issues. I'm not saying you get Varsho for Kirk. I'm saying that all these moving pieces and what is the end result, right? Definitely decreased offense for improved defense. And so far, how's that working out? And I did tweet today that I coming into this season, I really was hoping to end up having Dalton Varsho be my favorite player on this team. And everything that I've seen so far, I'm like, really I'm finally excited by the fact that he is on this team and to see what he can do. But 30 home runs, as you tossed out there, I think is probably off the table. So great defense, looking decent at the plate right now. Does that hold up over the entire season? I guess we're going to find out. The defense will. I'm talking about the offense. Yeah. And is that defense enough to mean anything in the greater picture of things?
Can I just
Greg,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Dalton Varsho's defense, great for keeping guys out. But how do we factor in that anybody who gets walked or gets on base, it's like a free triple because they just run at will against Alejandro Kirk? Where is the Dalton Varsho's defense equation in that fucking 4-second pop time that is Alejandro Kirk?
That, I think, was the point I was going to make too, because I hear you guys saying you traded offense for defense, but you really didn't. Gabriel Moreno won a Gold Glove last year, right? I think you guys traded away the neck Yadier Molina, which you guys Scott can confirm. I hated this trade for the Blue Jays from the start. I could not believe they traded Moreno, and I understand you weren't going to get the same return for a Kirk or a Jansen, and one of the catchers needed to be traded. Obviously, rostering all three of them was crazy. You couldn't keep Moreno in AAA any longer, but replacing a Gold Glove caliber, decade-long catcher that is good with the pitching staff for a slightly above average outfield defender who's a mediocre at best hitter, not given the small sample size to the start of the season, I think was a horrible trade and one that you could lean towards when it comes to firing your guys' front office, because it's awful in my opinion.
Wasn't it reported at one point that Kirk could have been involved in a trade for was it J-Ram? No, not.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
That makes it so much worse.
Right?
No. That's not on. No. J-Ram re-upped with Cleveland. No. That is not on Atkins. J-Ram re-upped with Cleveland. He was no longer on the trade market. That is not a legitimate criticism of Atkins. If you want to have a legitimate criticism of Atkins in this scenario, it's that the cupboard is bare. When you come to pros and cons of Shatkins, again, I'll say there are so many pros that the fan base is not giving him credit for, but an absolute con, we've talked about this on the walk-off, is their absolute inability to draft and raise and develop outfielders. So I understood the trade. I understood why you would want to bring in a Varsho about to go into their prime. Doesn't mean it was the right move, but I understood the strategy of it. And Scott, to your question here, this season, I think Varsho is playing with house money. He was so bad last season, and Juan hated the season he had in Arizona. Did you all just notice? Kami just said, hey, if Varsho can give me this, and this season, I'm thrilled. The this, and this Kami laid out is worse than the season we didn't like from him in Arizona. So this is what I'm saying. This guy's playing with house money right now because his offensive expectations are nil. If he does anything offensively, that trade's going to look better and better in Blue Jays fans' eyes. But then there's one in a bubble over our heads saying, Gabby Moreno won the Gold Glove last year, so let's not play this offense for defense. That is not what happened here.
Okay, no, and that's absolutely fair, Juan. You're completely right on that. And let me backtrack a bit. I have never been on board with trading away Moreno. I wanted to trade Kirk, and I said it on the show 100 times when he had that incredible season, because I said he was never, ever going to repeat that offensive performance. There was no way he was going to repeat that offensive performance. Trade him when he is at his absolute highest value. And because you've got this stud in the minors. So I'll never not be mad about that.
Yeah. It's like the catalog, the rating system of athleticism was completely thrown out when those two are sitting there. You look at them and you're like, okay, potentially they're 300 hitters. And potentially Kirk is a better framer of the low pitch because he's so low and he's good at framing. So we're going to take framing over throwing. And that potentially is a wash, but there's no way it's a wash in the athleticism. In the athleticism, it's absolutely Gabriel Moreno who was getting looks at playing third base the way Russell Martin was potentially looking at coming out of the catcher spot. So the athleticism there, and then the forward, to be able to look forward and see that framing is a finite skill that will be eliminated from the game. And that throwing is an element of the game that has been tweaked to be made more of an element of the game. And keeping the running game at bay is now something that it wasn't a part of baseball really as much as it was for 15 years. Now it is a big aspect. Now when we sit at the end of the game and they go, oh, they're just running. They're running rampant on us. They know our weakness. So to sit there and like Juan said, the loss of that base that is that average base stealers are able to take now. You're making average base stealers good base stealers and good base stealers exceptional base stealers.
If I could just
and you're giving them potential third.
In that it's only going to get worse as time progresses, as like you said, pitch framing becomes not a thing that happens in baseball with the automated strike zone. And there's going to be more tweaks and rule changes to enhance base running and base stealing.
And we haven't even seen the limit.
We have seen the first level of these rule implements, but it's not going to be the last in the next 10 years. There's going to be more to bring that out more. So it's only going to be like more exaggerated that like, oh, I wish we had a guy that can fucking throw a runner out. So I'm with
Pudge Rodriguez with Yadi's, that type of player. I don't really think that there's too much of a fluke in saying Arizona went to the World Series based on a rookie catcher, right? Like all of a sudden they would sit there in Arizona and talk about what they are when Moreno's behind the plate and what they are when he's not. And it's
a huge part here.
Different.
A huge part here is how exasperated it is because the defensive trade-off has not come with any offensive upside. Kirk at the plate today was spectacular. Other than that, Alejandro Kirk has been pathetic at the plate. Since he got named an All-Star in 2022, he's hitting like 240 and doesn't even have a 300 on-base percentage. And he had 11 home runs when he was named an All-Star. Since then, today was his 12th home run. That was a year and a half ago. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I totally agree with what Adam Mack is saying as well. This problem is only going to be exasperated going forward. I'm right with you guys. I literally remember Jen saying as well, Kirk will never be at a higher. My point about the whole him trading him for J-Ram, remember the Guardians had that guy following Alejandro Kirk. Remember that? They had him following him everywhere in spring training. But I just mean that's not on Shapiro and Atkins that trade didn't get made. J-Ram stayed in Cleveland. But yeah, you guys are so right about the defensive trade-offs we've made have not come with any offensive goodness.
Okay, so we're going to go to the next topic now, but first I will just clear up the speculation. And Craig, I do want to, and everyone listening, this is speculation. But what was floated was that the deadline of 2022, there was an offer on the table that included Kirk and some other prospects for J-Ram, which at that time, Atkins said no to. Then go to the offseason where then they doubled down on their efforts to get J-Ram, in which case J-Ram did wind up coming to a deal, signing a long-term contract. Again, this is speculation, and who knows if that happened, but there is a little bit of me that does think maybe the reason that he wound up throwing in Moreno, or that's probably the wrong way of framing it. The reason he threw in Lourdes and that Moreno was the piece around Varsho is that Atkins really wanted Varsho, and he didn't want to be snake bit again by holding his cards too close and not being prepared to give anything up, because he didn't want another J-Ram scenario to happen. Again, speculation. Who knows if this is true, but that's kind of what has been floated out there. We'll move on. Adam, what's your topic, my man?
Just to add to that, the timing of the Varsho trade, remember, was after the fact, we learned that the Blue Jays were very much front runners for Masataka Yoshida out of Japan. And then he even thought he was coming to the Blue Jays, and then at the last minute went to the Red Sox. And then the timing of pulling the trigger on the Varsho trade was like immediately following that. So like, I do think we just lost out on J-Ram the year before, and now like we had plans for this guy. We thought we were getting him, then we lost him, and whatever. Anyways, my topic for today is Alec Manoah. It's kind of like all of the young pitchers though, is like just where are you vibing with these guys? I mean, Ricky Tiedemann seems like he can't stay healthy. I mean, my panic level is at a 12 for him. Manoah might be good. I don't think it'll ever happen in a Jays uniform. What could we get? Package deal. Nate Pearson, Manoah, Ricky Tiedemann. All three of them. Can we get anything back?
Jonathan,
if Tiedemann's in there, yeah.
Another second baseman in India from Cincinnati. That's your return for both of them, not one. I think it's crazy, man. Like this Manoah situation is sad and pathetic. Like, this dude is somebody who's so mentally weak that he feels like he still needs to be a part of the team, despite the fact that he can't get out a single A hitter right now. Like, I know he's pitching in Buffalo, but it's been a mess ever since he got sent down last year. And it sounds like behind the scenes, he's kind of acting like a jackass instead of, putting his head down and putting in the work to get back to the type of pitcher he can be. The fact that he's on the bench and doesn't deserve to be there is disgusting. He's never going to learn, and he's never going to get better if they're going to continue to coddle him like they're coddling Vladdy. That's an organizational failure on these young kids' part, and they're not going to respond in a positive way that's going to result in good performances from these guys. It's absolutely pathetic, and I can't believe that that's something that's happening in professional baseball.
It was a failure last season when he just refused to go to Buffalo, and that happened. And the fact that he's, coming back to Toronto in between every start, I guess you could make the argument, Pete Kerr wants to take a look at him, but they got guys in Buffalo who can do that, and who can report back. He doesn't need to be here walking out of the bullpen with all the starters before every game. It's absurd. It is absolutely absurd at this point. And, it's interesting because his clock runs out, I believe, May 6th. They have to make a decision May 6th. Are they optioning him to AAA, or are they, is he still with the club? And I'm really interested to see how that goes. But I completely agree, Juan. I don't understand what they're doing with him, and I think it's an embarrassment on both sides.
Joel, if May 6th comes and Alec Manoah is handed back the 5th spot in the rotation after Yariel Rodriguez continues to look like he has, listen, I'm not going to say that there's not going to be growing pains and bumps in the road for Yariel Rodriguez, who is made his major league debut just a few starts ago, right? Like, I'm well aware this is a Cuban pitcher who was in Japan and has never shown that he can do it, but is showing it right now. Would you be disappointed if Yariel gets relegated to the bullpen and Manoah just gets handed the 5th spot in the rotation without proving it? Yeah.
100%. Without a doubt. Yeah. Yariel's my number 5. I really like what Yariel's bringing to the table. This is his slider is up there among the best. I like his mix. I like his attitude. I like his mentality. I like Yariel Rodriguez. I like this signing. It's pretty much what I guess San Francisco's doing the same thing with Jordan Hicks, who we had. And it's that, we see you as a reliever, but who says you can't be a starter? And you've got the stuff that says that you can start. And I would be the efficiency of the money spent towards him and being able to get a starter out of what you're spending.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like him and Kikuchi this year are absolute steals for this team financially. And I would be shocked. I'm like Juan said, I'm embarrassed when I see Manoah in the dugout, when I see them at a Leafs game and Manoah's there. I'm like, you're not a part of this team. And you have to understand, like, it's an insulting thing to say, why can't you go and really join up with the AA team and say, that's your team now? Go win there. Go be a winner in whatever lower level we put you in, because that's what you are. You're not some Blue Jay who gets to pitch in the minor leagues. That's not a thing.
Yeah,
so,
one good year doesn't buy you that. You're not Scherzer or Verlander or any of these guys. You had one good year.
Where does because we started the show with talking about like the hand holding of Vladdy with bringing in Edwin, right? And like that's kind of what I see going on with the Manoah staying in the clubhouse between starts in Buffalo is like, okay, he's clearly like last year, whatever happened was ugly, right? And we're trying to like rebuild a relationship. And then like we talk about Bo and Vlad like leaving or trading or walking or whatever, right? And like Joel, you said, we got to have like a GM in here that'll like rebuild those relationships and stuff. But like, is that not a generously, I want to look at that as what we're doing with Manoah of like, I don't like it either, but like maybe if he is fragile and we're like trying to rebuild a relationship with him, or is this just like,
if he's that fragile, I don't want a relationship with him. How about that?
He's too soft. He's way too soft.
Yeah.
But does not the same thing apply to the kids that are on the team, like Bo and Vlad? Like,
great.
Where's one fragile and where's one?
They're not performing though. So move them all, man.
Greg, anything to add on Manoah?
Well, I'm struck by the amount of praise that everybody here had for Yariel Rodriguez, because this is the same panel that kept telling me that Russ Atkins did nothing this offseason. Well, how did Yariel Rodriguez become a Blue Jay? Okay. I really
Pete Walker found him.
I'm in the minority here because I thoroughly disagree with everything you are all saying about Alec Manoah. And I'm saying that because I'm hearing a lot of conversations as if we know. We don't know, guys. We don't know. Adam Mack just said it. What if this is the right way to mend things with Alec Manoah? We have no idea. Everybody talking about how ugly it was last year. Does Alec Manoah agree it was ugly last year? Do the Blue Jays, do the people who know agree that it was ugly last year? Because
based on what I've heard, yes.
There's nothing out in the public for that. And if it was that ugly, why is he still there? So there's just a lot of definitive statements
because this front office won't sell low.
And why should they, Scott?
If he goes and excels somewhere else, that's how you lose your job, right? They're just protecting their job at this point. They're on the hot seat, and to go and move Manoah and then let some other organization like the Mariners figure him out and turn him into the ace that he was that one year, you lose your job over that shit.
So backtracking slightly though, with Yariel, okay, the big concern that is being floated out there is that he is on an innings limit, right? And so, yes, I absolutely think he is the fifth starter at this point. If he truly is on an innings limit, then that's where the concern comes in, because how far can they push him, or will they push him? And at that point, if Manoah isn't ready to go, my guess is that he won't be, just because we've not seen anything out of him to suggest he's really trending in the right direction at this point. So assuming that whenever that innings limit comes up, if Manoah is not ready to go, and I think they have to plan for that eventuality, then they need to go out and get themselves somebody.
Well, that's why this Bowden Francis injury, I think, out of nowhere. Last year, losing Hagen Danner out of nowhere just like that, and this year losing Bowden Francis just like that. I'm sick about both. friends of the Walk-Off podcast, I think both of them, I'm sick about both of those injuries. I love Y-Rod for 4 or 5 innings, then turning it over to Bowden Francis every 5th day. I love that plan.
By the way, I do want to clear up that I try my best to give credit when credit is due. And there was a lot of pushback on the Justin Turner signing, and it looks really good. Julio Rodriguez, great signing. Is it wrong that I feel like this is a good front office, but will never be great?
Boy, that is very interesting, because I do think it's a good front office, but will never be great. That is very interesting. I always say
that
that
will never be great.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Is it worth moving on? Like, we're getting super long in the tooth, so some of this stuff we can just let that ruminate and ponder or whatever. But
well, let me just say,
my follow-up to that
is never going anywhere.
My follow-up to that, Scott, though, is, again, if Bo and Vlad go on to like not be worth $300 million contracts, the way everybody wanted us to hand them out in the offseason of 2021, I don't know how we can't look back in hindsight and go, holy shit, thank God Ross Atkins had the fucking intestinal fortitude to not hand over paydays to these kids.
And I know you're saying we want to move on from the subject, but I'll just say real quick, Shapiro will never go anywhere unless he wants to. Rogers trusts Shapiro with all the $100 million projects. He makes them a ton of money. He is as safe as anybody in Toronto sports history. If he wants to go somewhere, different story. But firing Shapiro is never going to be on the table.
Okay, so let's wrap up here. All right. I do want to say thank you to everyone in YouTube for following along. We hit over 100 viewers a couple times throughout this. I think even right now at the end, I didn't check here, but we're around 80. So thank you very much, everybody. If you haven't hit like and subscribe, do so. I know, Jen, we kind of touched on your topic, and I'm hoping we can get away with just wrapping things up here. Craig, I know we didn't get to you too, but get ready for coming back all these Sundays here. We're going to try and be as consistent as possible this year. I don't want to keep everyone longer than we're already 25 minutes over, but thank you very much. So we're going to go around the horn here. Craig, appreciate you being back on the show, my friend. It is really good to see you. It's been a long winter without you, buddy. For everyone who wants to follow you on Twitter, how do they do so?
Not that I would recommend it, but Craig Ballard 77. I'm grumpy about Blue Jay baseball, as you can tell, so I wouldn't recommend it, but I love being on the Walk-Off podcast. I got time for you guys anytime. I'll tell you that right now.
And we really appreciate having you, Craig. I do also want to just say, I know that a lot of us were talking about Alejandro Kirk. I don't think any of us hate Alejandro Kirk. It's just that when we look at what happened and the catchers that wound up in the fold, it just feels like maybe the team would be better if it was him who had left. And this isn't any slight on Kirk. And honestly, I hope Alejandro Kirk fucking makes us eat all of our words. I really do. It would be amazing if come July, we're all like, I can't believe we were saying the things we were saying about Alejandro.
I think he needs to bunt every single at-bat.
All right, Jen. Frick, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. I missed this. And as usual, I did come with a list of other topics, and I'm pretty sure they'll still be relevant next week or whenever I'm next on. I'm pretty sure these are still going to be ready to go. So thanks. This was a lot of fun. Good to see all of you. And for the folks, if you want more from me, you can follow me on X, which is a weird thing to say. I'm on X. At baseball_Jen, and that's Jen with 2 N's.
Okay. Mr. Forno, Juan, our can we call you our sister podcast, the Mariners podcast?
The Mariners correspondent?
Yeah, there you go. Where can everyone who's a Mariners fan and or wants to know more about the Mariners follow you and your podcast?
Yeah, so you can catch me on IG. I'm not on Twitter, but you can catch me on IG at Elf Snow Mexican. And then on the YouTube side of things, as Scott had mentioned, this sister channel, the Walk Off Mariners edition. Is a different format over there, but it's mostly just me and Jordy talking shit about the Blue Jays. So if you're looking to get some anger out in the comments, that's a good place to do it.
You're the West Coast walk-off.
We're the West Coast walk-off. So
walk-off.
everybody in Vancouver, come out in July when the Jays are in town as well.
Honestly, if there's anyone in chat right now that's a Vancouverite, I know that's probably not how you want to be called, but anyone on the West Coast that might make the trip down to Seattle the 5th, 6th, 7th, we are running a baseball town live in Seattle on the night of the 6th. So on the Saturday night, we're going to have some stellar guests. I don't want to make the announcement yet, but a little hint here is we did talk about him today on the show, and he's a friend of both the Walk-Off Mariners and us here at the Walk-Off. So
You say
more
Kikuchi?
information.
No, but
More
we do have a
information.
Randy Johnson lookalike.
More information to come on that. Last and not least, I mean, not last because Adam, I will let you sign off here, but last but not least, our good friend Joel. Tell us a little bit about Around the Horn that Adam and I are with you here. I know we're working on a new title. Do you have a new title?
Oh my God, titles were rolled around this week. Really like interesting ones, like Mrs. October was thrown out there, and Mrs. Baseball was thrown out there. But like, I didn't want anything to be gendered, right? I didn't want to be a gendered title. Around the Horn is obviously the name of the roundtable show on ESPN, and it was always going to be a filler title in my mindset. So to have to rename it was never really a big deal. But yeah, it's God, it's been so hard to get it to that final stage, but it's finally there. And our executive producer who works for Will Trent, they just finally finished their final episode of Will Trent season 2.
Yes.
She's got 3 weeks, and now we're off for the whole pitching process. So pitching a baseball project, right? There's some sort of analogy in there that I'm missing, but
for those of you who would like to know more about this baseball project that is becoming closer and closer to a reality, feel free to follow us on Wednesdays and on Patreon. Joel joins us almost every Wednesday. We're helping him write this thing. So yeah, follow us on Patreon. To everyone that has spent the afternoon with us, thank you so very much. We're going to try and go every single Sunday from 6 till 8 Eastern time. Hopefully, my technological
on time next Sunday.
Yes, deficiencies. Hopefully, we land on time next Sunday. Thank you very much, everybody. Adam, you want to give the last goodbye?